Mishna Yisika, Perik Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah Gimel, Mishnah 3. Ha'isa sukasai bereish agala. A person who makes a sukkah on top of a wagon. Okay, the wagon is the floor. He builds walls, puts schach on it, and now he has a what we call a sukkah mobile. All right. Ay bereish asmina, or you put it on the top of a boat. Kashera. The halacha is that the sukkah is kosher. Now, let me read to you from here how they explain it. Although a sukkah on a wagon can be moved from place to place, clearly it's not in a permanent place. And a sukkah on a boat at sea can be blown down by an average sea wind. They are regarded as places where people would dwell. Despite the fact that they are dwellings of a temporary nature, they are valid sukkahs, since a sukkah is meant to be a temporary dwelling in any event, right? If we follow the opinion that a sukkah is meant to be a temporary dwelling, so these are temporary dwellings, clearly not going to be permanent, essentially, because if you're talking about both of them move, don't stay in the same place. The one on the boat has a hard time staying up in the winds, sea, but nonetheless, as a temporary dwelling for a sukkah, they are kosher. However, and this is an important idea. The sukkah on the boat must be strong enough to withstand an average wind on land, which is weaker than an average wind at sea, because otherwise it would not be considered even a temporary dwelling. Meaning your sukkah on the boat, right? There's a good chance it's not going to last because of the sea winds. But as long as if it were to be on land, it would be sturdy enough to be able to withstand the normal wind on land, it's considered a dwelling. It's considered enough. That's considered enough a temporary dwelling to be a kosher sukkah. So therefore, we say that both these sukkahs are kosher. And you want to go on it. You want to go on it on Yom Tif? You can. Now, the reason we're mentioning this part is because we're about to get into examples of a kosher sukkah that you can't go into it on Yom Tif, as we'll see soon. But here, there is no problem besides the fact that it's a kosher sukkah. On Yom Tif itself, you'll be able to go into it. Now, Bereisha Ilan Ayalgabi Gumel. He made the sukkah on top of a tree. Okay, he went ahead. He has committed a treehouse. Okay, he made a treehouse. Wait a minute. He made a treehouse. And he put the floor down on the tree. He puts up 4 walls. He puts up the schach. He's got a sukkah. In the case of the Gumel, the way they explained it here is he built walls between the camel's humps. Okay, the floor is the camel, and between the humps you put up these walls and schach. Okay, so we say kshera again. The sukkah is kosher. Is it a permanent place? No, it clearly is going to be. I shouldn't say by the tree it could be permanent, but by the gumel, by the camel, it's going to move around. It's kosher, but the ein oilen la b'yomtiv. And on Yom Tif, you cannot go into this sukkah. Now, let's explain why. But first of all, on Yom Tif itself, you cannot go on it. Chol Hamoed, you could go. But on Yom Tif itself, you wouldn't be able to go. Why is that? The rabbis prohibited using a tree, which means sitting or putting things on it on Shabbos and Yom Tif. You may not use a tree on Shabbos or Yom Tif. You want to climb a tree on Shabbos? You can't climb a tree on Shabbos. You want to hang up your coat on a branch on Shabbos? You can't do that, or Yom Tif. Why? Because they were concerned that one might pull off a branch, which is biblically forbidden. You're starting to use the tree. You're going to pull off a branch for something. That clearly is a Torah prohibition, and therefore we say no using a tree. Similarly, they prohibited using the body of a living animal on Shabbos and Yom Tif, because one might pull off a tree branch with which to prod the animal. You're riding your animal, right? You're riding your camel, and you want to go ahead and it's not cooperating. So you want to give it a prod. And what are you going to do? You're going to pull off a branch and give it a prod. Well, you pull off the branch. That's a problem on Shabbos and Yom Tif. For this reason, one may not use a sukkah that is supported by a tree or an animal. The sukkah itself, however, is valid and may be used on Chol Hamoed. So again, there's nothing wrong with the sukkah per se. The problem is that if the sukkah is basically being supported by an animal or by a tree, that's called using an animal or a tree, which you cannot on Shabbos and Yom Tif. And therefore, the sukkah essentially is kosher, but you won't be able to use it on Yontif itself. Now we elaborate a little bit more on this tree sukkah. Shtayim be'ilan va'achas bidei adam. 2 walls are on the tree, and 1 is made by man. Okay, the cases in a minute. Shtayim bidei adam, or 2 walls made by man. Va'achas be'ilan, and 1 is on the tree. Kasheber, the kosher. But again, you cannot go up on it on Yontif. Now, you ready? Here is picture number 1, what we call 2 on the tree and 1 by man. Okay, in this sukkah over here, right? You've got this wall. You've got the tree, and on the tree you've got 2 walls resting. Right, you got the floor that's resting on the tree, and you've got, or partially on the tree, or most of it is on the tree, and then you got 2 walls that are being supported by the tree. Okay, the third wall is a long board that starts from the ground and goes all the way up to the schach. Okay, that's not being supported by the tree; that's standing on its own. And to some degree, the floor is also being supported by the wall. You can't see it, but they have like this little ledge coming out of the wall by which the floor is sitting on, which the floor is partially on. But you've got most of the floor is on the tree, and 2 walls are on the tree. That's the first case. This case, okay, B, is you've got 2 walls starting from the ground going up, with 1 wall and the floor that are supported by the tree, but the 2 walls that are coming from the ground are making a right angle. They're not opposite each other, they're adjacent to each other. Okay? In both these cases, we say that you are allowed to, it's a good sukkah, but you can't go up on Yontif. Why? Because in both these cases, right, where you have either 2 walls that are supported by the tree, 1 wall, 2 walls supported by the tree, or 1 wall supported by the tree, with the floor being supported by the tree. In any of these cases, if you took away the tree, what would happen to the sukkah? Come down. Wouldn't be able to stand up. It would collapse because of the way. Because in these formations, you have a situation where you can't have the sukkah without the support of the tree. That means if you use that sukkah, you're using a tree. So therefore, on Yontif, you can't use that sukkah. But the Mishnah says, Shalosh bidei adam va'achas be'ilan. Now, let's say you have 3 bidei adam, you have 3 walls that are coming off the ground, and the 4th wall is supported by the tree. Okay, so you got 3 walls coming up from the ground, a 4th wall on the tree, and the floor is partially on the tree, but it's also supported by the 3 walls. If you pull away the tree, would the sukkah still stand? Yes, it would. Yes. It still has the 3 walls by which for the floor to support itself on. And therefore, in that situation, that sukkah, you can go in on Yontif. But one thing, don't climb the tree to get onto the sukkah. Got to have a ladder. But you can't climb the tree because that's, again, using the tree. Now, another example. Let's finish the Mishnah. There'll be one more example. Za'akal, this is the rule. Any situation where if the tree were removed, the sukkah would still be able to stand on its own. Kshera, it's a kosher sukkah, and you can go in it on Yontif. Now, if the Mishnah gave us examples and then it ends up saying this is the rule, that it means to say that we're coming to include another case that hasn't been stated explicitly. And that case is diagram number 3. Okay. Now, in this one, it's a case of 2 walls on the ground, 1 wall on the tree. But the 2 walls on the ground are not adjacent to each other, they're opposite from each other. Okay, so now the sukkah floor is sitting on the tree, but it's also sitting on the 2 walls. Because since the 2 walls are opposite each other, and they have this little ledge to put the floor on, right? The floor rests on the ledges of the opposite walls and on the tree. And one of the walls is supported on the tree. In this case, you took away the tree. Could the sukkah still stand?
No.
Why not?
Yes.
The floor would stand. The floor would still be there.
Yeah, because it's on two
Because it's on two walls opposite each other.
Mhm.
So essentially, you'd be able to have something left. You'd be able to have something left of your sukkah. Let me read it to you. Even if the sukkah has only two walls based on the ground, but they are opposite each other and not next to each other at right angles, the sukkah may be used on Yontif, since it would remain standing even if the tree is taken away. And therefore, so again, it's a case of two walls, right? You only have two walls on the ground.
Mhm.
But the point is, the way it's set up with the two walls opposite each other, you'd still be able to have your sukkah. You'd still be able to basically be in the sukkah without worrying about without the tree. And therefore, in that situation, we say if it can stand without the tree, that's not called using the tree. And therefore, we say that sukkah you could go in on Yontif. So as long that's the point of the rule. The rule is not steady, how many walls are on the ground or not. And you're right. If you have three walls, you'll be good to go. Two walls, it's going to depend. If two walls, if they're adjacent to each other, then it's not going to be good enough. You really need the tree for the sukkah to stand. If you have them opposite each other, then you don't need the tree necessary for the sukkah to stand, and therefore you will be able to go in that sukkah on Yontif itself. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.